So I'll say if you're not speaking, then we'll just mute and turn our video. Well, don't need to turn our videos off, but just mute if we're not speaking, just so that we don't get noisy backgrounds. But we'll let people come in, see how they go. Hello, everyone. Welcome as you're joining us online. We're just waiting for people to get into the room as the room's just opened. So get comfy. We'll be here for a little while this evening and just settle in. We're just waiting for everybody else to join us. Okay, we're at about 40 attendees. Just give people another couple of minutes just to click on the button and make sure they get in. We will be going through the structure of the Master of Teaching. We'll be talking about the specializations, how to apply, things like what we mean by placements and how they work, the support you can expect to get here at Monash, and hopefully we will answer a number of your questions. If you have very specific questions about your own personal circumstances, we may not be able to answer those all tonight, but we will be able to either follow up with you afterwards or put you in touch with the right person to answer those questions. Some people have noticed there is a Q&A section. You can use that now, or you can wait till later on and see if we answer your question as we go through. Entirely up to you. So Olive, you let me know when you are happy with the numbers and you'd like me to start, okay?
You're good to start whenever you want. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, let's get going, and we'll have people filtering in as we go. Luckily, we haven't got that annoying doorbell noise going off tonight, which I have to say, over the past 4 years, I've heard far too often, as I'm sure you have too. But first of all, welcome to Monash University and Monash Education Faculty. This is a webinar explaining and inviting you to think about studying the Master of Teaching program here with us at Monash. And before we do anything else, I'd like to acknowledge the lands on which we speak today, and all of those lands where all of us are sitting, no matter where you are in the country. And we recognise that sovereignty was never ceded. And specifically, we always acknowledge the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung communities of the Kulin Nation, who are the ongoing custodians of the lands on which the different campuses of Monash University now stands. And we seek to pay our respects in an ongoing way through the research we do, the way we teach, how we teach, and what we teach, and how we as academics learn and grow. And we pay that respect to the Wurundjeri and Boon Wurrung elders and their past and present communities, and hopefully in supporting and respecting those future communities as they grow as well. And I'd personally like to extend that respect to any Indigenous or First Nations people who are joining us here today. So thank you, everybody, for being with us. My name is Dr. Jo Blannon. I'm the course leader of the Master of Teaching. That means that I oversee the 7 different versions of the Master of Teaching program here at Monash, which is something that is very exciting for me, something I love to do, and a very big part of my role here at the university. I come from a teaching background myself. I've taught in 4 countries in 3 languages, in early childhood and in primary and in secondary, and now in higher education. I've taught in corporate settings, in finance, in business, in government, in not-for-profits, as well as in all sorts of schooling, traditional schooling, outdoor education, everything pretty much. So my interest is really in talking to you today about what it means to be a teacher in the 21st century. And at some point, we're going to have to stop talking about the 21st century because we're really a quarter of the way through already. So we're going to have to start talking about preparing for the 22nd century at some point. So I'm not sure what that point is, but we're getting close, right? So why think about Monash? Well, we are proud of what we do here at Monash, and we're proud because our faculty is rated as #1 in the country. And these numbers, you'll see them at every university. We are particularly proud of it because it reflects the work that we as educators and researchers do. I've worked for a number of universities. I feel much more connected to these rankings here at Monash. I feel like it does reflect the work that we do and the excellence that we strive for. We're top 14 in the world, which places us up there with places like Stanford and Harvard, and a number of the colleges at Oxford and Cambridge. So we have a very strong reputation in education. We've had those rankings consistently over a number of years as well. Of note is we're also the largest education faculty in the country. We have the largest number of students in our undergraduate and postgraduate programs, which means we have opportunities to offer programs that perhaps smaller faculties don't, just by nature of having those larger numbers. We have larger numbers of staff, bigger facilities, and larger numbers of students. So here's what we're going to be talking about this evening. We're going to be talking about this idea of a Master of Teaching. And we're going to look about the key information about the course. Okay, we're going to make sure you go away with some key understandings of what this program is, what this study entails. We're going to talk about entry requirements, how to know whether you're going to get accepted, whether it's going to be the right pathway for you. And we're going to talk about how to apply, because to become a teacher is not the same as applying to every master's program. There are some extra conditions and pathways you have to take. We're going to hear from Bridget, who's joining us here today. Thank you, Bridget, who is an alumnus of our program, who actually started teaching, finished her degree and started teaching in 2020, just as the schools all closed down here in Victoria during COVID. So looking forward to hearing from her. And then we will head into some questions. So before we start, I want to make sure you understand that this program is the Master of Teaching. Now, in our faculty and in other universities, you will also see programs called the Master of Education. There is a big difference between these 2 programs, so make sure that you're applying to the one that you think you are. The Master of Education program involves study and research around education itself. So you could be a physicist, you could be a scientist, an artist, a theatre script writer, but you could study education, what it means to learn, what it means to teach. It does not qualify you to be a teacher. The Master of Teaching is a qualifying program. If you complete the Master of Teaching in Australia, it means that you will be able to register as a teacher in Australia. That means you will be able to, you will have met the national standards, of which there are several. You will have met those national standards and you will be registered as a teacher. Okay, so this is a qualifying degree. The Master of Education does not qualify you to be a teacher. Okay, anybody can do a Master of Education. If you want to be a teacher, you need to do the Master of Teaching. Okay, so that's a big question we get often in these sessions. Make sure you understand what you're getting into. So think what to expect. Well, first of all, you are joining a profession. And when we say profession, we're talking about a specific set of industries. So we're talking about things like medicine and law and accountancy, anything that has these similar factors in common. It has an expectation of ongoing lifelong learning. That makes it a profession. It has an expectation that you will receive and give feedback and critique from your peers. Okay, think about when doctors have something go wrong in hospitals, they give and receive feedback from and to their peers. Lawyers do the same. Teachers do the same. There is an expectation that you will interact with the community that is within your profession, that you will not just go off on your own and do your own thing, that you will engage in the profession itself. Okay, so you are not just training for a job, you are joining a profession. And with that comes an expectation of professionalism. Having said that, you do not have to go into a school at the end of your Master of Teaching degree. You could go into government. You could go into large organizations. We've had graduates go into so not-for-profits like Oxfam and run their staff education programs. We've had graduates go into HR. How do you teach people in large organizations how to manage difficult conversations? Education and pedagogy is a big part of that. You might go into public relations. People that work for the royal family have teaching degrees in the UK, right? Because there's a high level of communication and education knowledge that goes with that. You could work in publishing. You could be working for not-for-profits. You could become a technical writer or a textbook writer, a librarian or a curriculum designer. You could become an education administrator. You could work for government departments, museums and art galleries. You could be tour guides for different things. You could be tour guide designers. You could be large scale or small scale evaluators in all sorts of things. As technology grows and is impacting so many more professions, so do the opportunities for people with teaching qualifications, because there is so much more that is required of every person in the workforce to learn and keep learning. And so they need people who can teach. So you are going to be joining this profession. So let's have a think about what you might do. Now, I'm going to see if this will work. I might have to just come out of this. Excuse me for 1 second. And no, it doesn't want to go. It's all good when the plan comes together. Can you see anything on the screen? No. My PowerPoint has frozen. That's okay. We will just keep moving. That's no problem. All right. So what do teachers actually do? So one of the misconceptions that we often confront when we start with people training to be teachers is that teaching is about standing up, telling people information, going home and marking work and coming back the next day. That is absolutely not what teaching is in 2024. And we'll hear from Bridget later about her perspective on that too. Teaching is about asking questions, not just any questions, not how many did you get right on that test. It's about asking clear, critical questions that ensure students are thinking deeper about different topics. You will ask about 400 questions a day in an average teaching day. That's what the research tells us. The older the children that you work with, the less questions you ask, but the more difficult questions become. You answer about one question every minute. So you're asking all these questions, but you're also answering all these questions. So, and we don't always provide the answers to questions in classrooms. We have to decide whether it's appropriate to give the answer or to provoke the student to figure out the answer on their own. The younger the child, the more questions you'll often have. Not always, but that's the general trend. You will make, on average, about 1,500 decisions a day. And that's not just, have I got time to dash to the loo? Or should I make a cup of tea now or later? It's about, okay, so that group of 3 girls over there didn't understand my last instruction. How can I rephrase that instruction so that they will be able to get through this task and learn what I wanted them to learn? Okay, that group over there have finished the task that I asked them. What's the next learning stage on the journey for them? Okay, these are the decisions that teachers make every day. You will be planning for 5 hours average of engaging, purposeful, and appropriate learning every day. And as I said, standing up and talking is not teaching, all right? So yeah, in my classes, we're always saying telling is not teaching. You don't tell people something and assume that they have learned it. Telling is not teaching. You're planning for different ways of learning. Will this work better as a learning activity if this is a group activity? Will this work better if they read this on their own and then retell it in their own words? Should they engage with this concept visually? Should they retell this orally? How will this concept make sense and connect with other language? That's the kind of planning and learning you will be working with. And the average size of a class in Australia is about 25 students. So slightly smaller in primary school, slightly bigger in years 7 to 9, and then in years 10, 11, 12, slightly smaller, right? But about that. Alongside those kind of academic focused roles, you are also expected to support the social skills development of every child, not only individually, but how they interact. So teaching and learning spaces are social spaces. We will talk to you about developmental approaches, theories of learning, ways that cognitive science can inform what we do in classrooms, and how you can support the development of social engagement and skills in the classroom. You will most likely work with teaching teams. No matter your experience in high school, or primary school, most schools these days, teachers at least plan and assess in teams. So you may teach on your own in a classroom, but you will share the planning and the assessing with a team of teachers. So it is a collaborative career. It is something you do together. You also have a responsibility to the parents, caregivers, and families involved. They are part of your role as well. No matter the age of the students, they are part of who you are working with in your role as a teacher. And of course, it's not just the classroom. Gone are the days of rocking up at 9 o'clock and going home at 3. There's before school yard duty, there's gate duty at the end of the day, there's bus duty, there's clubs at lunchtime, there's accompanying the swim club to the next school meet, there's all sorts of committees. You might be on school council, you might be a rep for a certain year level on certain things, all sorts of things that contribute to the school life and the school culture. And that whole rounded, and this is only half of kind of what teachers are engaging, but that's really exciting. That's what makes it a very fulfilling career, makes it exciting to know that you're not just teaching someone to know something, but you're helping someone grow and develop as a human being who has potential to impact on the world. So as you go through the course, we focus on a number of different concepts. And these are the ones I want to highlight because when people come to teaching, if they haven't kind of thought about what it means to be a teacher these days, sometimes these aren't front of mind. So communication skills are absolutely imperative because a good teacher is a good communicator. And a good communicator in this context is someone who can rethink, restate, and modify what they're saying so that it addresses different people's needs. So it's not about projecting your voice, it's about going, okay, I explained what it means to add fractions, but that student didn't get it. So how can I communicate it differently? Maybe I need to communicate it with hands-on. Maybe need to communicate it while I draw something. Maybe I need to have them communicate it to a peer, right? The communication skills. How am I going to explain to my peers what I've done and why? How do I explain to the parents what I'm doing with their child in the classroom? Data literacy is increasingly a significant role in schools. Increasingly, schools are data driven. So that means that we don't just go in and say, I feel like teaching about African animals today. We have to look at the data and we can say, right, what are the humanities concepts that we need to focus on next? And we might say, okay, well, we could look at African animals, but what is that? How is that connected to the curriculum? Well, the curriculum says we need to focus on animal adaptations for different environments. And I know that my students understand aquatic adaptations because we looked at that last semester, but some of them don't quite understand why some have webbed feet and some don't. So we need to bring those ideas together. I can't just jump down the rabbit hole of African animals. Critique of learning and performance is a very big part of ongoing, and that goes back to the idea of teaching being a profession, receiving and giving critique and feedback. So you will be required to critique your own performance as a teacher and to receive feedback. And I always say to my students, feedback is just information. It's up to you to make sense of that information. So you take it on board, you say, thank you for the feedback, and then you sit down and say, and what do I do with that? What do I make of that? Okay, and so there is something that is going to be ongoing throughout your entire career. Evaluating learning is no longer something you do at the end of a project. That may have been your experience in schools, because it was for a few hundred years, is you teach something, you have students demonstrate that they've learned it, and then you tick a box to say, yes, they know that now. These days, evaluation of learning is about measuring progress, measuring growth, and we use something called formative assessment, which is it informs our teaching. It informs what we do next. So if they don't understand why frogs have webbed feet, then there's no point us jumping to giraffes and those kind of things. We have to think, what does that mean? That formative assessment tells me I need to go back and think about this before I can jump onto that. It is a creative profession. It is a space where you get to interact with young people. It is a relationship-focused profession. One of the biggest things is about being open to conversations, to interactions with young people from age 5 up to age 18. And it doesn't matter what year level, how old they are, they all want to have a relationship with you. They want to feel like an individual. They want to feel like they are known by you. And if they feel known by you, then they are able to learn. And we have cognitive science now that proves that their brains are much more receptive to learning when they feel much more open and they're much more able to be creative. So reflection, self-reflection for you and for the students is really important. And you have to be willing to fail. It's a big one for all of us. I've been teaching for more than 20 years, and just the other week I had a class that totally failed. And it just totally went downhill. All of the resources went wrong. They all missed the point of everything I was doing, and it all just goes wrong. And that's totally okay. These things happen, but you have to be able to self-reflect, think about what went wrong, and pick yourself up and keep going. Okay, it's not about always being perfect in these kind of things. At Monash, the way we approach learning is perhaps different to other types of learning. So if you went into a business master's or into an arts master's, it might be a bit different, right? So first of all, there are no exams in the Master of Teaching. At no point will you have a sit-down exam. Now, you might have tests. Tests are low stakes formative assessments often that tell us how you are progressing in the different subjects that you're studying. Most of your learning will be in tutorials. Most of it, or not most of it, a lot of it will be in group work, and it will be interactive, and you will be expected to participate. It's not a turn up and take notes and go home. It is interactive and participatory, because the way you learn at Monash is designed to mimic the way you will act as a teacher in a school when you get to be a teacher. Our assessment is very much focused on applying what you learn into practice. So we're going to teach you, for example, cognitive load theory, about what that means, spaced retrieval, cognitive load theory. And then we're going to say, well, what does that look like if you're working with 7-year-olds and you're asking them to count by fives? Okay, we're going to ask you to actually connect that theory to practice. And those are the kind of things that we work on through our assessments. Okay, about 90% of lectures are now delivered online to be watched asynchronously, that is at your own time. There's time accorded in the timetable for you to do that. But that means that there's no group sitting down watching a lecture, okay? So that changes the way we work as well. We've looked at that. We've looked at this a little bit. We've got a large number of specializations, which I'll get to momentarily. Every single semester, no matter which program you do, you will have professional experience. And we have 2 of our fabulous team from professional experience here with us tonight, who we'll hear from shortly. The job outlook, particularly, is very strong at the moment. We have very strong starting salaries, and there is quite a high demand in most areas at the moment. We have here at Monash a very strong focus on student support and well-being. We have what's called education success advisors, and when you enroll, you'll be provided the contact details through our online system with an education success advisor. And that person remains your contact throughout your course, your 2 years or your 18 months if you're doing the accelerated program. And that person is your point of contact for any questions about, can I change my major? Can I retake this unit? Can I get some help with my writing? Can I pay my fines on my library books? Can I, all of those things, all of those questions, you will have a single person to support you with that, which is unique to us. Our graduate outcomes, again, we are very proud of this because we think it's really important, because this is how we contribute to the teaching profession. Within 4 months of completing the Master of Teaching, about 94% have found employment, and 87.5% have found full-time employment. What those numbers don't tell you is how many people were looking for employment, right? So we don't have the data out of that 90, out of the 100%, we don't know how many were actually looking. But we do know that those numbers are very high compared to other initial teacher education providers. So basically, if you are looking for a job when you finish, your chances are very strong. The graduate salary, starting salary for a teacher in Victoria is listed there. And as you go up the scale of experience and expertise, you can head towards different leadership roles called leading teachers or a learning specialist. And you can progress up to this figure here. All of these numbers are available online. You can simply Google them. Salaries for teachers, Victoria, will take you to these. And they change from time to time, so keep an eye on those, okay? These are standardized across Victoria. If you work in another state, you would have to look up their salary scales for that. Okay. Fast facts. We have programs that run at the Clayton campus, and we have a couple that run at the Peninsula campus. They are all 2 years full-time or 4 years part-time. We have one option to do an accelerated program, but only if you're doing secondary specialization, okay? Secondary specialization only. And that's to do with our registration and accreditation body, and also the placements in schools, making sure you get enough placement days in the right methods and things. There's some complication there. semester one starts in February, at the end of February usually. You can see the tuition fees and the Commonwealth supported places. We don't get told how many of those there will be until later, but that will be updated on the website. I'm sure Olive will be able to give us more if you have questions. So yes, 2 years full-time or 4 years part-time. These are the different programs. So you can do early childhood only. You can do early childhood and primary, which qualifies you to teach from 0 to 12-year-olds. Primary only, 5 to 12-year-olds. Primary and secondary, which is what Bridget did, 5 to 18, or secondary only, which is 12 to 18. Okay. If you are going into secondary only, you need 2 method areas. Okay, these are called methods. So these are what you get assessed. You get your undergraduate degree evaluated before you come in. Okay, this is how you come in. So in order to register as a teacher in Australia, you have to have 2 methods to be a secondary teacher. If you want to do the primary and secondary course, you only need 1 method. Okay, there's a little bit different there. We can't tell you tonight. We can't tell you straight away which method you're qualified for. Okay, you will have to go through Olive's team or through the Monash Connect team to get your qualifications evaluated. Can't tell you that tonight, just over the top, but we can evaluate those for you. Okay. These are the current specializations or methods that we currently offer. Okay, and you need to have undergraduate experiences or credits in those. I think we'll stop there. I'm going to hand over to the placement team now. So we have Liam Buckley and Kelly Dennis with us tonight. Would you guys like to unmute and introduce yourselves?
Thanks, Jo. So I'm Kelly from the PPC team, and Liam's here as well from the same team. During the Master of Teaching course, you'll be doing professional experience placements. You'll have opportunities to be placed in early childhood, primary or secondary, depending on which specialisation you choose to study. We always encourage active participation when you're in placement, whether it's your first placement or through to your final placement. Monash offers a diverse range of placements. So locally, lots of schools and early childhood centres in metropolitan Melbourne. Rurally, we have programs which is called our Rural Professional Experience or RPE, and we offer programs down in the Bass Coast, in Bairnsdale, and we've also run programs in Mildura. As well as that, we offer international options, and that option is they run in Italy, Switzerland, Fiji and China. Obviously, that's subject to availability, and we take applications around those placements. But no matter what specialisation you choose, you'll do a minimum of 60 or 70 days, depending on your specialisation, and you'll be placed into the centres or the schools by the Professional Experience Office team. And as a pre-service teacher, you're then placed with a mentor, and they will then support you through your placement. I'm going to hand over to Liam now, and he's going to talk more about the support that the Professional Practice Consultants team, known as the PPC team, provides for all of our pre-service teachers.
Thanks, Kelly. Good evening, everybody. So in the education faculty at Monash, we really value the professional experience that you'll do. As Kelly said, a minimum of 60 days across the course. So the professional experience team, Kelly's mentioned the PEO. That's a team who source and place and allocate you into schools or childcare centres. And then the PPC, the Professional Practice Consultants, is a team of highly experienced teachers. And our role is to support you before you go into practice. So we help prepare you with resources, with workshops. And when you're on practice, we also, part of our support is to visit you and make sure that everything's going smoothly. And our job is to really try and ensure that you have as successful a practice as possible. There's also opportunities to be coached. And if there's any concerns that you have during practice, we're there. I was going to say 24/7, Kelly. It feels like that sometimes, but we're there for you during the week, and you can email and call and you can come in and visit if we need to help you with anything in particular. So enjoy the practice. Know that you've got a great deal of support behind you. Thanks, Olive. Thanks, Joe.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so we have a lot of really great feedback on our professional experience team. So we have one team that sets everything up with your placements. You do not have to do that. Here at Monash, there is a team that will set that up for you. And then we have a fabulous team that supports you while you're on placement as well. So that can be a really supportive role. My first year Master of Teaching students are currently on their first placement at the moment. And I'm emailing them to see how they're going, and they're really enjoying it, but it's quite different than what they were expecting. So yeah, it's been eye-opening for them, but they're absolutely loving it. It's really great, I think, when you've had 6 weeks of learning about theory to suddenly get in front of students and see what we've actually been talking about. So thank you for that, guys. I'm going to hand over to Bridget, who's going to talk to us a bit about her experience. Thanks, Bridget.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Joe. So before I commenced my studies at Monash, I did quite a bit of research. I looked into a number of different courses, and I attended an evening such as this. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. And the reason why I chose Monash was it afforded me the opportunity to study both primary and secondary in terms of my specialisation. And at the time, I didn't know if I wanted to teach primary students or secondary students. So that was a benefit for me and why I chose Monash. I also spoke to a number of principals and just anyone I knew within an education sort of sector, within the education sector. And I had learnt through those conversations that Monash, especially the Masters of Teaching, was highly regarded. And I thought that would help me as well in terms of my employment prospects. So I commenced the course. It was 2 years, and as Joe mentioned, half of that was online study, which upon reflection was really useful for me, because in my first year of teaching, as soon as I graduated, we were then in lockdown in Victoria, and I was teaching my own Year 5 students online. So a lot of the practical experience that I had enjoyed via my Monash studies was able to come in immediately handy for me as I was teaching my own students via a computer, just like this. So as I went through my 2 years of study, I particularly enjoyed the collaboration aspect of my classes. The tutes were excellent because our lecturers and our tutors would try and model teacher behaviours and routines and activities that I would then be able to try and emulate or use within my placements. So that was really useful. I did find the workload quite heavy, and so I needed to make sure that I organised my time, built in enough time within my timetable to do the readings, connect with some of my colleagues, and within my own group of friends that I made, we all came from a diverse range of backgrounds. Mine was from a corporate communications standpoint, moving into teaching. Had a couple of other colleagues that had come from journalism and law into the Masters of Teaching. So they were connections that I made early on in my Masters of Teaching, and have continued to stay in contact with those who are now teachers, and we share ideas and compare experiences as well, which is great. The placements were excellent. As Joe mentioned, essentially to get your feet on the ground very early on in that first year, very daunting. And for me, it was Year 9 a media class with a huge group of 15, 16-year-olds. So it was an immediate baptism by fire, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. And I made sure that whilst I made connections and built my network while my studies were happening, I was able to then line up a placement in my second year of a school that I was quite keen to work at. So that was helpful. And I made sure that I worked extremely hard and followed up with my mentors from each of my placements to be able to get feedback. Because as you learn throughout the Masters of Teaching, being a reflective learner, looking at opportunities to improve is incredibly important. And it's something that I do with my own students day to day. Provide them with feedback, provide them with feed forward, look at opportunities to grow, understand that mistakes are great to have because we learn from those. So these are some of those experiences that I had as a learner, which I now share with my own students. my work since, as soon as I graduated, I was offered a full-time role, and I've been at the same school now for this is my 4th year, teaching year 5. So I have a wonderful group of year 5 boys in my class, and I really look forward. I've already completed a number of other professional experiences and learning experiences whilst I've been working, but in the future, I look forward to potentially further study. A number of my colleagues at my school have a Masters of Educational Leadership, which is something that I think is really interesting. But from my standpoint, the 2 years that I spent with Monash, both in person at Clayton and online, were able to set me up with a lot of work on my side, but also the support of my lecturers and my tutors and my colleagues that I made friends with, to be able to get into the workplace and immerse myself as a year 5 teacher now that potentially will be teaching secondary down the track as well. They're probably the main sort of touch points I thought that I would share this evening, and I'm happy to stick around for some questions a bit later on.
Thank you, Bridget. That's really lovely, and really appreciate your time tonight, because I know term 2 is always busy in schools. So thank you for being here tonight. Just to finish up before we get into questions, I just want to talk about the application process. And I've just had a quick look through the Q&A questions. And I might ask Liam and Kelly to, if you can see the Q&A questions, to have a look in there in case there's some that are relevant to you. But let's talk about entry requirements. So an Australian undergraduate degree or equivalent. Now, I know someone in the Q&A was asking about that. So you have to get your degree assessed. And I know there was a link that was put in the Q&A. I think Patrick put it in. We can see if that can go in the email that will come out after this session. And you can make an appointment to chat with someone in the faculty about getting that evaluated. You do need a credit average, so 60% average or higher. It may be higher, that's what it is at the moment. It does change from time to time as requirements across the country and within Monash change. There is a very strict English language requirement. So this is the IELTS requirement. I did a lot of my undergraduate degree in France in French. So for those of you applying in another language that's not your first language, I applaud you, because I've been there and I know that that can be a challenge. These are the standards that you are working towards. It does say or equivalent. So if you've done one of the other tests, I think Pearson is one that sometimes people do, you can talk about, you may not have to redo it to do IELTS, you may be able to use that one. And then you do have to pass, this is where it's different to applying to any other masters. You have to do a situational judgment test. And this is part of applying to a qualifying degree. So remember, the qualifying degree means that at the end of this course, you will be able to register as a teacher in Australia. Part of that is the situational judgment test. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Now, everyone has to do the situational judgment test except for early childhood. If you're going for early childhood only, then you don't need to do it. If you're doing early childhood and primary, then you will need to do it. Okay, so a lot of the questions in the Q&A are about, will my undergrad qualify me for this, this, and this? And as I said, those are very specific questions. So you will need to follow up and get your undergraduate degrees accredited. And this is what they'll be looking for. You have it for early childhood and primary. You have to have at least 1 year of full-time equivalent study relevant to one or more learning areas of the primary school curriculum. Okay. Now, the primary school curriculum in Australia, you can look it up. Australian curriculum, just Google Australian curriculum and you will find it. It is a really broad curriculum. So there's not many undergraduate degrees that don't fit in there somewhere, right? There are a couple, but you can, there's some scope there. Primary, this one is the same, because the reason this early childhood primary specialisation, this criteria is because of the primary, right? You need to have 1 year full-time study relevant to one or more learning test. We have the primary and secondary, so you need that same criteria, 1 year full-time equivalent study, but you also need to have a major study in one secondary teaching area. So you can find this on our website. If you Google Monash Education, you will find our faculty website, and you will see that we have a big list of all of the specializations, all of the method areas that I talked about before. So if you're doing the combined primary secondary, you only need one major. If you want to do secondary on its own, you need to have two. Okay, so a major and a minor essentially. So for example, you might do maths and science, you might do health and humanities, you might do maths and art, you might do music and physics. Okay, lots of different options. And that's what needs to be evaluated from your undergraduate transcripts. And just before I move into the next slide, a point to make is that this course is about teaching you how to be a teacher. It is not teaching you the content, okay? It's only 2 years. If you were to do the undergraduate version of this course, it's a 4-year course, essentially 2 years teaching you the content, so teaching you maths or physics or science or history, and then 2 years teaching you how to teach it. This is the how to teach it part, okay? So when you come into this program, it is assumed that you have the content knowledge, and this is the pedagogical or teaching skills that go on top of it, okay? We have the situational judgment test. This is the Monash version. This is the Monash Teaching Suitability Test. There are a couple of different tests around. This is the one that Monash provides. You have to, these are what it's searching for. We know that while we believe everybody can learn, we do believe that some people are better for teaching than others. Okay, different personalities fit better for teaching than others. Okay, and we're looking for positive motivations, strong interpersonal communication skills. We're looking for a really strong willingness to learn, for resilience and self-efficacy. So that means your belief that you can actually make a change and that you can action things. Conscientiousness and organizational and planning skills. So you get a situation, it asks you to make decisions about what you would do in that situation, okay? It's fairly straightforward to complete. There is another one that's around. If you're looking at other universities, they may ask you to complete Casper. Now, you don't have to complete both, right? The MTeST is free. It's only for Monash. But if you're applying for other universities and you've already done Casper, you can use that same test for Monash as well, if you see what I mean. All right, you don't need to do it both. If you're just applying to Monash, just do the free one. Okay. Applying. International students' applications are open now. The Australian, New Zealand residents and citizens and permanent residents for Australia, you apply direct to Monash, and it be open somewhere around August is usually when they open, okay? You need to allow 3 weeks for the situational judgment test, okay? The last thing I'll mention that's not on one of these slides is that if you are wanting to become a primary or secondary teacher, there is a national test of literacy and numeracy called LANTITE, Literacy and Numeracy Testing for Initial Teacher Education. It is designed so that the teachers in Australia have literacy and numeracy levels in the top 30% of the country. So basically the government's saying, and the regulatory body around teachers is saying, we want the people teaching to have really strong literacy and numeracy skills. So in the first year of the program, you will need to pass the LANTITE test. We have a lot of support for you. So don't let that put you off applying. We have a lot of support. We have a whole team that will help you through. We have very, very high success rate on the first go, but you get 2 or 3 goes, right, at the test. We have a lot of support for you. You don't need to do that to apply. You don't need to pass that to get in, but you do need to do that in the first year. So it's something to bear in mind, okay? So Olive, I might stop sharing and get you to let us know what questions we might have.
Lovely. So if anyone has any questions for either Joe, Bridget, or the placement team, now is the time to pop them in the chat. We have a couple here about placements. So for either Kelly or Dennis, is there a choice on which schools or locations you're placed, or are you just placed anywhere?
So in terms of the choice, the Professional Experience Office, they will place you. So in the first year in the Masters of Teaching, they'll place you in a school or a centre. But in your second year, so the final year, as it's a 2-year course, you get to self-nominate. So you have the opportunity, if you want to, you can self-nominate a school, like Bridget was referring to when she was speaking earlier. So in the first year, the Professional Experience Office team will place you. And then if you don't want to self-nominate a school or a centre, that's absolutely fine. And the PEO team will place you for all of your placements. Generally, across the Master of Teaching, there's 4 placements. 1 per semester, except in the early childhood and primary specialisation, there are 6 placements because you need to be able to meet the requirements for the regulatory bodies for primary and for early childhood. So you can't just choose where you want to go. You can't just ring us up and say, I want to go to the primary school that's down the road or the secondary school that I know something about. We place thousands and thousands of students. I'm sure you can appreciate that that would be a logistical nightmare. But the PEO team do a really good job and they try their very best to be placing you at schools that are going to be relatively close to where you are currently living. They do their very best. Sometimes it will be, you will need to travel a little bit. The maximum would generally be around 90 minutes, but they do try and place you as close as they can.
And further on that, how do students nominate to do a local, rural or international placement?
Yeah, so these are really exciting opportunities that we have at Monash for students, and it's through application. So once you're enrolled in the course, the Professional Experience Office team will send you all the communications around anything to do with placement, whether it's around an upcoming placement that you have in your course for the unit that you're enrolled in, whether it's a communication around rural placements or international placements, and then they will give you a time frame and they'll tell you all about what the expectations are in terms of applying for those sessions. And then there'll be if you're successful in applying, then there'll be orientation sessions that will run before you are going on a rural placement or an international placement. Very similar to the pre-placement workshops that we offer for all students, regardless of whether they're doing local, rural or international placements.
Quickly, Joe, can the course be completed online, and what's the workload for on campus per unit?
Yeah, so this course is not online. It is an in-person course. And the reason for that is kind of twofold. One is this is a nationally accredited, externally accredited course because it is a qualifying course. So that means that the national body has accredited it as an in-person course. And the other reason is that we feel very strongly that teaching is an in-person job. It's an in-person career that involves interpersonal and intrapersonal skill development. And so it is an in-person course that is on campus. The workload of a full-time program is full-time. So you would consider it as a full-time job for 2 years. You would have contact hours. I think it's like 4 units, 24 credit points a semester, roughly, plus your placement. So those credit points include on-campus classes, plus activities that you would be expected to do in between classes, plus readings, plus assessment preparation as well. So it can be quite demanding if you haven't, particularly if you haven't been in education for a little while, if you haven't studied for a while, it can take a moment to kind of get your head back into it. But there are a lot of supports to help you kind of get back in the groove. But yes, it is not something you can do full-time alongside a full-time job, for example. It is going to demand a full-time commitment.
And contact hours for part-time is equivalent to half of a full-time load, correct?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And for part-time, you have, it's over 4 years and your placements would more likely to be in years 2 and 4. but that depends on which specialisation. Yeah.
Perfect. Can Kelly or Liam provide any details about teacher placement grants and how to apply?
So again, once you're enrolled, you would get more information around the placement grants. Education is an ever-changing landscape, and even just this week, we've heard from the government that there are going to be more changes coming around placements, whether they will be paid, and there are placement grants in place at the moment, but it depends on where you're doing your placement currently as to whether or not those placement grants apply. So once you're enrolled, you would then be able to get information. You can, of course, do a search yourselves, and you could put in placement grants and you would find information. But in terms of specific information around the Master of Teaching, it's best once you're enrolled to then get the information that is for your particular specialisation at the time at which you are going to be doing placement.
And another question for placements is how long are each of the placements?
So that depends. It depends on the specialisation, but generally they're between 10 to 20 days. So for example, if you're enrolled in early childhood or primary, you might do a 10-day placement, so 2-week block, and you'd be at the centre or the school for a 2-week period with a mentor. In early childhood, you'd be working with different age groups. So you might be working with 0 to 2 years of age. In the baby's room, in an early childhood centre, you might be working with students at kindergarten age between 3 and 5 years. It's all going to be on your course map. All of that information will be given to you on your course map. In primary, you might do 10-day placement or you might do a 15-day placement. So it just depends on the layout of your course map. And all of your specialisations will add up to the number of days that's required for you to actually meet accreditation for the course that you're doing. In secondary, again, between 10 to 15 days. The longest placement will be 20 days, and they are generally the final placements that you do in your course. So you generally do the equivalent of like a 4-week block in a school.
And another one for you guys.
Sure.
Can you do rural and international placements in the first year, or is it only the second year when you can nominate?
That is a great question. I think that it is in your second year that you would start with the rural placements or the international placements. I may not be correct on that, but I think it's in your second year. The reason for that is that you actually need to be able to sort of settle into university, settle into the course, and then work out what you're doing with your placement. So I would generally encourage that from second year, second, third, and the second year of your placement. Although with the MTeach, I think perhaps in your second semester there would be that option as well. But again, the Professional Experience Office will give you all of that information once you've enrolled in the course.
Perfect, thank you. In terms of completing the situational judgment test, it is advised that you generally apply first, and then you need the Monash ID to be able to sit the situational judgment test.
Yeah.
Next question.
But you need both of them for your application to be considered, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either the
Don't wait for anything to prompt you. Do the application for Monash, get your Monash ID, and then go straight to the MTeST if that's what you're using, and use your Monash ID in the MTeST. Don't wait for anybody to prompt you, just because you won't get your application evaluated until you have both those things. Yeah.
For Bridget, how did you find the transition between your previous career and that of teaching? What were the major challenges transitioning as a corporate professional to a teacher? And how did your career experience influence you as a teacher and your teaching methods?
Great question. So with my previous career in corporate comms, that helped me in terms of stakeholder management, and I would then apply that into the school setting of my stakeholders being my students, parents, my colleagues, my head of campus. And so my communication skills I was able to leverage my communication skills of being able to identify the needs and empathize with people, consider their perspectives, be responsive in my communications, and also manage a workload which is very dynamic and very heavy during term time, but still consistent throughout holidays as well. So that's one thing that is probably a bit of a misconception for some people. And I have that comment a lot. Oh, you're so lucky you have all these holidays. Even in our holidays, we do a lot of preparation. We review past units, update them based on our current learners, ensuring that we are teaching them to the point of need. And recognizing that we have diverse learners within our classes across even my year 5 cohort. So I would say that's how I was able to transition across. And I really tried to look at my strengths from my previous career, which was communications, motivating people, and as I said, stakeholder management. And that was what inspired me to then move into education.
Thank you. And again for Bridget, or as well Joe, what are the challenges of studying the Master of Teaching without a background in teaching or never before taking a degree within teaching?
Well, this is a I'll go first, then you go. This is a qualifying degree, so you don't have to have any teaching background. You don't have to have, someone's mentioned in the Q&A, you don't have to have volunteering background. You don't have to have any child work background. That is what you're coming to learn. You have to have content knowledge. So, you know, maths knowledge or science knowledge or history or geography or whatever. You bring that, we teach you the rest, okay? You don't need to have child work background to come in. You don't need that. That's what we're going to teach you.
And I would just add to that, that even while I was studying, I tried to get as much experience in classrooms via volunteering outside my placement. So I tried to build that, I guess, experience with young people as much as I could during my teaching degree, my Masters of Teaching, which meant that I felt far more confident and comfortable to enter the classroom immediately as I finished. So volunteering, in addition to your placements, I would highly recommend.
How many days would you roughly have to attend on campus if you're doing part-time study?
Okay, so this is really hard to answer because it depends on the schedule. It depends on the timetable each semester. So you, in part-time mode, you would be taking 2 subjects. We call them units, 2 units a semester. So, you know, 2 classes, I guess, a week. They may be on the same day, they may be on different days. And it depends on how that class, that subject is actually structured. So it's really impossible for me to say until the timetable comes out a couple of weeks before semester starts. Yeah. Can I just point out too that in the chat, there's lots of people asking for the link for applications and things like the MTeST. Can you, if you guys can check in the webinar chat, you'll be able to see that Jennifer has put the link to the application and the MTeST there as well. There's a link you can all get to from there. Great.
Thank you. In terms of working at a government school post-study and being qualified for government incentives and HECSTET qualification to have the government pay the HECSTET. Do you know anything about that, Jo?
Yeah, so that's something that you would have to work with the Department of Education about. We can't be the intermediary for that because that's with you and their and the Department of Education. So I suggest going on the Department of Education website and having a look at the scholarships for Master of Teaching. And having a look at what they're offering. There are a number of different conditions depending on what course you're looking at doing. I can't give you advice on that. It's not my area. But go and have a look, and there are potentially scholarships. I know some of my students are applying at the moment for that. But yeah, worth going on their Department of Education website and doing some research to have a look at that. They may be available to you.
And other scholarships available for the course?
Ooh, I don't know about that one. Patrick? Or Jennifer? I know there are university scholarships, like internal scholarships. I don't know. Jennifer's joining us from overseas at a very difficult hour of the day, so it might not be easy for her to go. That would be a question to ask of Monash Connect. So Monash Connect is our central kind of Q&A point that you could go through, unless Jennifer is able to answer that one.
Yes, yes. Sorry, everyone. I'm joining from my hotel room, so I had to put on my virtual background just now, so you don't see my messy room. So I'm a senior course advisor here at Faculty of Education. Very happy to help answer any questions about admissions, scholarships. So Monash does offer international scholarships for students, but it is very, very competitive. So we offer 4 international leadership scholarships that cover 100% of your tuition fees, but only 4 places available each year. So highly, highly competitive. We also offer 31 international merit scholarships, which is $10,000 per year for the entire duration of your studies. Again, very competitive. You do have to apply after you've got a full offer from us. If you want to be considered for the scholarship. But for international students, although it's very hard to get a scholarship from Monash, the Victorian government is now offering regional and rural placement grants, which are available to international students. So you can get up to $420 per day through this regional and rural placement grant scheme. So this is the only type of government funding assistance that is available to international students.
Thank you.
Yeah, most welcome.
Is there any there? So they're all for international students, yeah?
Yeah, the scholarships that I just mentioned are all for international students. For domestic students, there's a range of government scholarships available. There's the Victorian government secondary teaching scholarships, which essentially you get the bulk of your study, the tuition fees, if not all, reimbursed during and I think 2 years after your course completion. And the placement grant for regional or rural placements are also available to domestic students. There are Commonwealth teaching scholarships available for students who want to do primary or secondary teaching. And for early childhood, of course, there's Victorian government scholarships that cover the costs of the tuition fees. So yeah, lots and lots of scholarships available for domestic students via government grants. Yes.
Right. Thank you.
No worries.
For placements, will they all be in government schools or will they be opportunities to teach in independent schools as well?
So great question. And the answer is yes, there are opportunities to teach in government schools, in government schools, in independent schools, in Catholic schools, in special schools as well. So there are all sorts of opportunities that are available. Again, the Professional Experience Office will communicate around those opportunities to you. And Olive, I'll just pop in here that I've just confirmed that first year and second year master's students can apply for rural and international placements in answer to the previous question. Thanks.
Perfect. I've got a question here about organising a meeting with the faculty to discuss admission requirements. You certainly can. I have a link that I'll pop in the chat now, and we'll also put up a QR code right before we finish up the webinar today to be able to book in a call with a faculty member. Any other questions that aren't specific? For how many places for semester 1 intake in Masters of Teaching do we have, Jo?
I don't know. I don't think we know yet because we don't have the number of Commonwealth supported places just yet. But yeah, it is competitive, but we have a decent percentage more this year than we did last year. Let's put it that way. So we should, apply early so that you've done the work, and then you'll be able to see what happens. It's all I can say, really. We don't have quota at this point. We don't have quotas that we advertise. I don't personally have a quota, so we just wait and see who comes through.
Perfect. I'll just share my screen quickly and pop up a QR code and a web link for you to be able to book in a call.
Have you got it, or I've got it? You got it?
Oh yeah, I've got it here, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine.
So there's a website there, and a phone call which will get you through to Monash Connect, or via the QR code you can book a call directly with the Faculty of Education as well.
So I would suggest that if you want more information, to take a screenshot of this or to open this now on your phone and save the link, so that you've got it. I know that the team will be sending you a copy of this PowerPoint after the session, so you will have access, but if you don't want to wait that long, take note of this now.
Perfect. And there's still a couple of other questions that are being answered, but they're specific to individual people. Yeah. So if there's no other questions, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks for Jo, the placements team, and Bridget as well. And I hope everyone has a good night. The recording will be sent out within the next couple of days, likely tomorrow.
Lovely. Thanks everyone. Good luck with your applications. Have a great night. Thanks, Bridget.